Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, disturbing allegations that Governor Wes Moore lied about his academic record as a Rhodes Scholar candidate. Voters ignored again as County Council self-appoints Shebra Evans to vacant council seat. MCA flexes his muscle with release of the Apple ballot. And coincidence? Superintendent Tom Taylor wants to close county's only charter school. Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by civic activist Cary Lamar and Stacey Sauter, a member of the Montgomery County Republican Central Committee. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. Welcome to 21 This Week. A lot to cover today. A Washington Free Beacon investigation alleges that Governor Wes Moore exaggerated his academic credentials, including claims that he pursued a PhD at Oxford University, claims the university reportedly cannot substantiate. While the governor's office disputes the wrongdoing, the story raises broader questions about resume inflation, elite credentials, and how much do voters really care about academic accuracy when evaluating their political leaders. Tonight, we'll ask whether this is a partisan nitpick or a legitimate issue of credibility and transparency, especially for a governor who is seen to have national ambitions. Cary, the Washington Free Beacon is a conservative outlet. How should voters weigh allegations coming from partisan media, and what responsibility does the press have to distinguish between exaggeration and intentional deception?
Well, I think they should pay attention to all media, weigh it, put the appropriate weight to the article, and then act accordingly.
Well, this is a hot off the press kind of story. It was just released yesterday, and I'm sure there will be others that will be doing investigations. But Stacey, if a governor exaggerates, any governor, his academic credentials to secure elite fellowships or enhance his public stature, does that go to personal integrity? And should viewers view it as a disqualification rather than a resume dispute?
Casey, I'm just hearing about this story for the first time. So I'm just going to reflect back on what we do know about Governor Moore. And that was that in a 2006 application for a White House fellowship, he listed he had received the Bronze Star Medal for his military service in Afghanistan, even though he had not yet been formally awarded it at that time. This was something that was broken by the New York Times, if you will recall. And he acknowledged that it was a mistake. And I'm sure that anything in relation to this, it will be like, oh, we've got the chronology wrong, whatever. But this may be a systemic problem with him. He was later awarded in some ceremony the Bronze Star officially, but could it have been a factual error in application? Maybe, but this is a guy who seems to have set his sights on the White House a long time ago, very Clinton-esque in that regard, doing all the right things, presumably at the right time to get the attention of the right people. So if he's had to burnish his resume in certain ways, I'm not surprised because people before him have done it and people after him will do the same thing. It's a matter of the press doing their job.
Yeah, all right. So, Cary, even if the reporting is accurate, does the absence of a formal Oxford PhD really matter when evaluating governor's performance as Maryland's chief executive, or is it a distraction from his substance and governance?
Well, normally I'd say no, but in this particular instance, is he pandering to Islamophobia? I don't know. That concerns me. We're heading into the most vulnerable and sensitive times, dealing with the Middle East crisis, and why is he doing it? I think it hurts his political career, in my personal opinion.
Can I jump in, Casey? Can I add something to that? Cary, yeah, a committed Islamist just shot a National Guard in the face and killed her. And we need to be on high alert to Islamic fundamentalists operating in this country. And if this is a man who wants to be the leader of the free world and has lied about, I mean, if it can be proven that he lied about his credentials and he lied about getting a PhD or working on a PhD and being in a PhD program, this man has no business being in the White House. And if the Republicans don't eat him alive, the Democrats will in the primary.
Well, I think these passionate words, he's a criminal shot someone. And the bottom line is, and a horrific, a terroristic criminal. I'll go for that. But if you want to promote terrorism, if you want to promote Islamophobia, this is a really good way to do it.
Well, I see, Cary, I come at this from a very different perspective. I really don't care what he wrote, and what the topic of his thesis was on, whether it was on national security or not. I mean, that's really is, I think, irrelevant. The question is whether or not he actually did it. And the fact that neither Oxford nor the governor's office has been able to produce a copy of the document itself is questionable. Now, to be fair, and I'll take this to your point, Cary, to be fair, maybe he felt after he wrote it that the topic was too sensitive and he didn't want it published. But it seems odd that we can't find it. And at what point does resume embellishment cross the line from puffery to credibility? I'll let each of you have about 30 seconds on that.
Yeah, bottom line is the sensitivity is today. We just witnessed a horrible war where 80,000 people were killed. Okay, 70% were women and children. President Trump is trying to promote some sort of a peace plan. And do we want to promote Islamophobia? I mean, I see it every day, and it troubles me. And it doesn't do anything to promote what our ultimate goal is, and that is coexistence, peace, and prosperity between two groups of people. I'm sorry.
All right,
Cary, that's how I feel.
You made your point. Stacey, you got 30 seconds.
I don't see how you can build the twin bridges of peace and prosperity if you're considered to be a liar. I mean, that the guy is he seems to be a congenital liar. Time will bear this out. We'll see. And the process will wean him out. He's going to have to go through the crucible of a primary if he does decide to run for president. But right now, the Democrats aren't looking good. When you see what's happened with Tim Walz in Minnesota and all the problems that Newsom has generated in California, and then you see we've got serious budget issues here. I can't see how this man could ever win the nomination.
All right. Well, obviously, we're getting a little away from the topic itself. I want to thank you both. I know this is a recent story, and you haven't had time to prepare on it. But let's go on to our next topic, and this is one that really grinds my gears. I got to tell you, the Montgomery County Council appointed former Board of Education member Shebra Evans to the at-large seat vacated by Gabe Albarnez because the resignation occurred on December 1st, and county rules mandate that appointment, rather than a special election, should be held. Critics argue voters were denied a voice in selecting the replacement, and I'm one of those critics. I really think it's a bad idea. I think the citizens should select their leaders. But Cary, supporters say the county charter requires an appointment, and the council is just following the law. What do you think?
Okay, first of all, I believe that Shebra Evans she'll do a great job. I think she's a good choice. But having said that, I do believe that the public was lost out on the opportunity to have a special election to choose their councilman, their leader, or their representative, and that's troublesome.
Well, Shebra Evans may be a great candidate. I don't know the woman, and I don't know whether she'd be a great council person. All I know is it stinks the voters weren't allowed to choose. And Stacey, this is really what upset me. Applicants were required to match Albarnez's party affiliation and pledge not to run in 2026. Do you see this as protecting incumbency or just a fix for the Democratic Party?
Oh, for crying out loud, Casey, let's not kid ourselves. Of course, it's about protecting incumbency. This is, after all, the, incumbency party of Montgomery County we're talking about. To give them credit, they do have the technical part correct because the resignation happened on December 1st, and the county council was allowed, under the rules they wrote, to appoint a replacement instead of holding a special election. Fine, that's legal. But look at the conditions. Applicants had to match Alvarez's party affiliation and pledge not to run in 2026. That's not about continuity, that's about control. And over 90 people applied for that position. So, and the public never saw the full list. And they had 3 handpicked finalists, which included Evans, who, by the way, lost her seat on MoCo school board in the last election. So is the process legal? Yes. Transparent, not even close. Was the public served? No. Voters didn't get a say. Challengers were locked out, and whoever fills the seat gains multiple advantages without facing the electorate. Montgomery County voters are constantly told participation matters until it's inconvenient. And then we're told, don't worry, the insiders have it handled. So absolutely, this is about protecting incumbency.
All right, Cary, you get the final word on this, Cary.
I agree with Stacey to some degree. The fact of the matter is this is about control. You have to consider the fact that the superintendent, Taylor, is promoting this new regional program model. It's going to cost a lot of money. He wants to cancel a charter school. He wants a $2.75 billion CIP. So it doesn't hurt to put a former Board of Education member on. And I'm not trying to impugn Shebra Evans, but from a justification standpoint, I can understand why the council might want to target that kind of a candidate.
All right. Well, you got the last word. When we come back from this short break, should MCPS superintendent lead the effort to shut down the county's only charter school? And really, how influential is being on the Apple ballot? Stay tuned. And welcome back. The Montgomery County Education Association released its influential Apple ballot, endorsing candidates for county executive, county council, and school board. Analysts say that the Apple ballot strengthens viable candidates, but some question whether the union is prioritizing, say that 5 times real fast, ideological alignment over electability. Cary, the union refused to endorse some incumbents who voted to raise taxes for schools. Does this show the union is more interested in political purity than constructive governance?
Well, it's obviously, look, the school system has an extremely challenged budget this year. I mean, they're looking at a $2.75 billion CIP. They're looking at, this new regional program model, okay, with the implementation of, the current commission reports or the plan, scholastic achievements. It's going to cost a lot of money. They're going to need every dollar they can get. And naturally, the MCEA is going to promote the candidates that they think are the most, the candidates that are going to win. Okay, so they've pretty much chosen all of the incumbents. That doesn't hurt. And then they've brought in a school board member themselves. You know where they're coming from. But I don't know, in such a challenging year, whether the Apple ballot's going to really have that big of an impact. I think the people's pocketbooks are going to make a bigger difference. That's my opinion.
Well, let's see what Stacey has to say. Stacey, critics say the Apple ballot is a single union, gives the single union disproportionate influence over county elections. Is Montgomery County too dependent on union-driven politics, or are people just lazy? Do they just take that Apple ballot and say, "Oh, this is who I'm going to vote for"?
Mm-hmm.
Casey, I'm going to start off by telling you I am very passionate about this, and I believe that unions have a very important role in our society, but it has to be balanced. And yes, Montgomery County is far too dependent on union-driven politics, and the Apple ballot, in my opinion, is Exhibit A. The Montgomery County Education Association, MCEA, isn't just a local players union. People need to know this. It's an affiliate of the National Education Association, the NEA, which is the largest political labor union in the country. This is a national machine with a national playbook, and the Apple ballot is simply the local delivery system for their message. You see the exact same endorsement model across the country. One union, one ballot, enormous downstream influence. When candidates start campaigning to the Apple instead of to voters, the ideology and union priorities replace accountability and results, especially in school board races, because it's not just for school board, their endorsements. And I'll be transparent about where I stand. I'm an active member of UARE, United Against Racism in Education, a Montgomery County based group. It was founded by Dee Rubin, a former educator, that she did this precisely to push back against the Apple ballot. She's got an alternative focus. It's not based on the labor union's agenda, but on who will serve parents, students, and taxpayers in Montgomery County the best. The difference matters. The Apple ballot asks, will you align with us and our ideological political agenda? Whereas her blue book asks, will you deliver academic results? That's not anti-teacher, it's pro-student and pro-parent. Casey, when a single union becomes the gatekeeper for viability in local elections, voters don't really get a choice, do they? They get a recommendation stamped in red. And over time, that kind of dependence distorts democracy. So yes, the Apple ballot has disproportionate influence, and we're doing whatever we can to battle it. And the fact that citizens have had to create alternatives like the Blue Book should tell you everything you need to know about how concentrated that power has become in Montgomery County.
Well, we're not going to talk about the individual endorsements in this segment. We're going to save that for a later discussion as we approach the primaries. But it is concerning that people take that Apple ballot and they take it in with them into the voting booth, and they follow it religiously. Any other final thoughts, Cary?
Yeah, I've got to say something. And I highly respect Stacey. There's no question about that. Do I disagree with her sometimes?
30 seconds, Cary.
Bottom line is, you have the National Home Builders Association, you have the National Apartment Buildings Association, you have the Board of Realtors. There are so many special interest groups that also participate. And unions have built this country. If it weren't for the unions, we wouldn't have the standard of living that we do enjoy. So, you gotta take the good with the bad. I mean, it's that simple. Everyone's going to promote their own agenda, and you have to go into the voting booth knowing that.
Yeah, but Cary, the electricians union, they don't have their claws in our children.
Well, they have their claw in the vote, believe me. They put a lot of money into getting these candidates elected.
Well, the question is, it basically comes down to, and we've been talking about this for the 22 years that I've been on the air, is whether or not the Apple ballot has too much influence. And I don't think we're going to solve it today. We're going to go on to our next topic, which is Montgomery County's only charter school, just one. Mecca Business Learning Institute faces closure after Superintendent Tom Taylor cited violations of special education laws, privacy breaches, and operational failures. Charter advocates argue MCPS has long resisted school choice. They fear competition, and they're just trying to get rid of the only charter school in the county. Now, Stacey, MCPS test scores in English and math are still well below the 2019 levels that we saw during the pandemic. And according to reports, they flattened out after 2023, 2024, with uneven academic performance across MCPS high schools. So should Montgomery County be expanding charter options instead of trying to shut them down?
Yes, Casey, Montgomery County should be expanding high quality charter options, not shutting down the only one that it has. And you're absolutely right. If you zoom out and you look at where the MCPS English and math scores were still well below the 2019 levels, and they've largely flatlined, from what I understand. But this is where politics enters the picture. Charter schools sit outside the Apple ballot ecosystem. They're not union run, they're not union endorsed, and not easily controlled. And because of that, I think that when the endorsement machine has outsized influence over school board elections, anything outside that structure is seen as a threat rather than a laboratory. So, we need to have this first charter school experience to see how it goes. And when, charters aren't a silver bullet, but they offer choice, innovation, and accountability. And when outcomes aren't improving, protecting what's controllable instead of expanding what's working helps the system, not students.
So, Cary, do you think this is politically driven?
Absolutely. I mean, they've been trying to avoid charter schools in Montgomery County for as long as I can remember. What really troubles me about this, and I don't know whether Mecca actually had any issues with scholastic achievement. We don't know that. The only complaints that I've been able to get out of reading Mr. Taylor's letter is that they used the wrong transportation system, to bus their kids. And what's the other one? They had a problem with the American Disabilities Act, and the confusion there is that the responsibility of MCPS, or is that the responsibility of Mecca? That they're arguing that in between. I don't know if that's justification enough to revoke their license. That's where I have a problem. That's where we're lacking transparency, and it's the only charter school we have. Shouldn't we give a little deference to that? And they already had a problem and had to go to the Radnor school temporarily while their school is being built in Germantown. And the fact of the matter is the county's not giving them permits to build a school.
Well, we got to go on to break. Stacey, any last thoughts?
When MCPS has struggled for years with special education compliance issues of its own, yet we don't talk about shutting down underperforming MCPS schools. We talk about corrective action. So why can't you do that with a charter school? You take corrective action. That's the simple thing that, in my mind, to take care of this.
You're going to have the last word.
Underperforming.
When we come back from this short break, parting shots. And welcome back. Now with party shots, Cary Lamar.
Okay, thank you, Stacey. Well, the General Assembly is going to come into special session very soon, I think within a week, and they're going to be dealing with picking the new Speaker of the House. And in doing so, you have to look at the candidates. Today, the lead person would be Jocelyn Penna Melnick. She's a delegate in Prince George's County. She's also head of chair of the Health and Government Committee in Annapolis. That is interesting, given the fact that we've got a $1.5 billion deficit coming in, and that's primarily driven by Trump's big bill, big beautiful bill. He's proposing to reduce $300 million coming to the state of Maryland for SNAP funding, as well as ACA related reductions. So it looks like Miss Penna Melnick will probably, her agenda will probably be more related to health care. What is that going to do for Montgomery County?
I got to cut you off. I got to give equal time for Stacey's parting shot. But thank you so much. Good point about the upcoming special session.
Right.
Stacey, your parting shot.
Well, Casey and Cary, as always, it's a pleasure. And as I mentioned earlier, voters in Montgomery County have every reason to be skeptical of the red apple ballot. And this isn't some wholesome applesauce, my friends. It's a bad brew of political coercion and control that steadily erodes parents' and students' voices. So as we head into 2026, I'd encourage all voters to look carefully at candidates who did not receive a red apple ballot endorsement and ask why. And I'd also urge them to consider alternatives and look at the alternative voter guides, like those from United Against Racism in Education, UARE, which evaluates candidates across party lines, Democrats and Republicans alike. And they base their decisions on who will serve the parents, the students, and the taxpayers the best. With that, I wish everyone a happy holiday and a very healthy, happy new year.
Well, same to you, Stacey, and same to you, Cary. I want to thank you both for appearing. I really appreciate your volunteering to give Montgomery County an opposing voice as to the news that affect us the most. I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 This Week, I'm Casey Aiken.